Pittsburgh Steelers fans, what's going on? This is Jeff Hartman, co-editor of BehindTheSteelCurtain.com with you for another episode of the Steelers Preview. Joining me as always, Bryan Anthony Davis, the podcast producer, and Dave Schofield, the other co-editor of the website. I just pulled a really good That's What She Said joke before we went on the air. That's why they're laughing. It was perfectly timed. Nonetheless, Bryan, how's it going?
You know what? This is great because what people, and I hope they realize this when they watch us, when BTSC Nation sees the three of us together, we're friends. We're buddies. We love, we talk after the shows, we talk before the shows, and it was a genuinely great That's What She Said. So this is always so much fun to gather with you guys. So it's like being with my buddies at the bar. It's cheers. Everybody knows your name, and you can call me Norm since I'm the really big guy that, well, I don't drink beer, but, you know. Well, I guess I'm Cliff. But we've talked about that before.
Cliff Clavin. Dave Schofield, welcome to the show. How's it going?
It's going. I mean, some people call me a Cliff, but most people think I'm too nerdy and intellectual, and they try to say I'm more like a Fraser. I don't know. But, no, things are good. Good to be with you guys, even though we're a little bit later tonight. That's my fault. My son had his last basketball practice for the season tonight, so hopefully then next week we don't have to wait on me quite as long.
No, it's okay. I do want to let the fans of the show know that we are essentially – we've got a lot of people ask about the after party, which is something we used to do. We used to do the after party, and we would cut this show, and then we'd start another one, and it would basically just do – crazy off the wall talk. Like, we didn't talk about the Steelers. What we're going to do is we're going to try this again maybe next week, but instead of cutting the show, we're just going to have a last segment. And if you want to stick around, you can. We'll talk about that next week. But I want to let you all know there have been a lot of people in the live chat that have said, when's the after party coming back? It is in the works. Be patient. You'll get it. All right. We have a long off season ahead.
That's what. No, right.
Yeah. There you go. All right. Let's talk about the Steelers. That's what everyone's here for. And the news this week was, obviously, it's been talked about ad nauseum, Ben Roethlisberger and the statement from Art Rooney, and then Ben Roethlisberger's agent, Ryan Tollner, comes out. I mean, it is literally PR after PR move from both sides of the table. And the thought is that Ben's going to come back. I think we can all say that we think Ben's going to come back. I would have said that even before Ben's statement from Ryan Tollner and everything else. But the question is bringing back Ben Roethlisberger a sentimental move? That's a tough question. We'll go with you, Bryan. What do you think?
Wow, this is really tough for me. You know, I kind of think in a way it is. I just don't think they're ready to cut ties with Ben Roethlisberger. Now, this does not mean that they don't believe that Ben Roethlisberger can get them to the Super Bowl, because they would not bring them back if they didn't have some kind of thought that he can still get them to the promised land. So that's what I'm thinking here. But I keep on thinking of the 1990s, the early Boston Celtics, when they held on to Larry Bird, you know, Kevin McHale, Robert Parrish, Dennis Johnson. They kept those guys around way too long. And it makes me think about that. Are they keeping Ben around because they're not ready to just tear that Band-Aid off real quick? And they're not ready. They're trying to delay the inevitable. So it feels like 60-40, with 60 being more of a sentimental move. That I really still think that there's part of them that thinks that, oh, it's going to work. But that was kind of last year too. And we saw what happened with that. I'm not poo-pooing the move. I'm just saying that it feels sentimental.
Okay, what about you, Dave? What do you think?
I don't know if it's as much sentimental as it is just familiarity. You can have familiarity without sentiment. I don't know, but it probably is some sentiment. I'm surprised Bryan didn't go into the great big story about it's the girl that you dated on and off, but you've been really good friends the whole time, and you just don't know because you just have that connection there, and you just don't know that you want that to really go away. I'm not going to do it justice. I was just waiting for Bryan to do something like that. I don't know that that's the case. They know what they have in Ben Roethlisberger, and sometimes it's, the more you know. about a situation that it's more the familiarity and that they think they know what they can get. I didn't feel any sentimental ties when it came to Kevin Colbert's talk about stuff. So, like you said, he was the bad cop. So I don't know. I'm the verdict's kind of out on it. I'm going to say no. I just think that they like the familiarity, and then when it's time, I think they just don't think it's time yet. They don't think it's time yet, and I don't know that it's for sentimental reasons.
I don't think they're sentimental at all. Look at Hines Ward. Look at Troy Polamalu. Those are two players that would have had sentiment with them. It would have been a sentimental situation, and they basically told him, "Look, you're done here. If you want to play somewhere else, you can, but you're not playing here." Now, Roethlisberger's it's a quarterback. I understand that. I think this is financial more than it is sentimental. In other words, they could kick him to the curb, but they're going to have to eat all that cap space. If you're going to have to pay money to a guy, you might as well get at least one more year out of him. And let's be honest, does he not give them the best chance to win? And I'm not talking about a Super Bowl at this point. I'm just saying, does he not, out of the quarterbacks on the current roster, give them the best chance to win football games? Yes or no, Bryan?
Yes, he absolutely right now probably gives them the best chance. And to answer Dave's question real quick, the reason I didn't go for something like that is because this leads into what Jeff was saying too. They don't have the hot side piece. They don't have somebody hot waiting in the wings. It's not there. So, Mason Rudolph is the friend that drives you to school and buys you breakfast and does your English homework. That's kind of what that is. So they're not ready to move on to him.
Dave,
what about you? What are your thoughts on that? Does he give them best chance to win?
Okay, I'm glad you reset the question because Bryan got me so distracted there. I had to think about this. Does he give them? I would say he gives them the best odds. You're like, wasn't that the same thing? I'm like, yeah, kind of. Meaning, you don't know what you don't even. After 2019 and the one game from 2020, you don't know that how much you could depend on Mason Rudolph. You definitely don't know what you have in Dwayne Haskins. Maybe you have something great, but you're not counting on that. Ben gives you more of the certainty. Not that it could be through the roof, but things are just more certain with him than it would be someone else. Could one of those other two guys, explode onto the scene if given the chance? Absolutely. But you know what you have in Ben until it runs out of the tank, and they don't think that the tank has run out yet, although a lot of Steeler Nation does.
Okay, so listen, I'm getting kind of fed up here, not with you all, but more so the fan base. I understand that everyone has a very dejected and jaded thought on the Steelers after losing 5 of their last 6 and losing in the playoffs the way they did. I get it. But are we forgetting the first 10 games when people were saying Roethlisberger should be in consideration for comeback player of the year and even most valuable player? He's not going to win it, but at least he might get a vote because he's never had a vote in his entire career. I don't think that his play, the whole offense literally went to crap. I don't think it was all number 7. I guess to me, I'm thinking, my goodness, did we forget all of that? And does that not count anymore? Because it does for me. He's still capable of making the plays. And I'm going to go all the way back to last offseason when he is literally rehabbing his elbow. He's not really able to get himself ready. There was no preseason. I feel like this offseason, if he comes back, because it's not a guarantee yet, if he comes back, then he absolutely will have an offseason to prepare himself, to get his arm right, to get his head right, to get his body right. And then we hope that this offseason is a little bit more normal with preseason games, with mini camps, with OTAs. Get him in there. He'll be able to actually work on the Canada offense and not just be thrust at, weird situation with training camp in Heinz Field last year. Are we all forgetting the fact that he played some really good football last season? Bryan, I'll let you go.
For the most part, we are. But with all due respect, Jeff, are you forgetting the 4 interceptions and being anemic against the Bengals? And because you were dealing with some dropped passes, but a lot of the fan base, if I'm going to step into their shoes and their mindset here, what I'm thinking is that they are thinking about that game against Cleveland with all of the interceptions. And look, the furious comeback in the second half, I get, but that was allowed to happen because they were so far behind. So that's the thing about it. There's he was amazing during those 11 games, but in the last 5, he wasn't as amazing as he was in the first 11. Lots of problems around him, I get, but people aren't forgetting that either.
Okay, Dave, what are your thoughts?
It's kind of one of those deals where the last thing in our mind is what we think is how it is going forward. I brought this up in my letter to the editor this past weekend. It's been over 6 weeks now since the Steelers played, and we kind of have changed how we look at the whole last season based on our own narrative in our own mind, and not as much on the Steelers play on the field. But even I know I was guilty this last year. I brought it up in the letter. The last game I saw Benny Snell run the football last year was Week 17 against the Ravens. And in the first half, he was running great until the Steelers' fourth-string quarterback fumbles the ball away and gives them a late touchdown in the first half, and the game's out of reach that they can't even really do what they wanted to do in the second half. I look at how he ran there, and that's how I was looking at him going forward. And I needed to look more at the whole body of work. And we do that sometimes. We're looking at that last game. We're like, but yes, it was the Steelers' most important game. Absolutely. Because every game in the postseason is more important than any other game you could have. But if we really want to evaluate overall play, we really need to look at this. I'm going to ask you guys a question. How do you feel about those Green Bay Packer fans who right after they lost the NFC Championship game was saying Aaron Rodgers is done? We need, what's his name?
Jordan Love.
We need Jordan Love right now. Rodgers needs to be cut before they get back to, they were in Green Bay, before he gets out of the locker room. Now we look at him, MVP.
The MVP of the league.
What do we think of how ridiculous that reaction was by Packers fans? There's a lot of fan bases that are looking at the Steelers in the same way with Ben, even though it was spread out a little bit longer. So that maybe we're a little bit too emotional about it. Let's go back. Let's look at the whole body of work. Maybe that is the Ben Roethlisberger moving forward, what we saw in the playoff game last year. That might be it. Maybe those last 6 games are what he is, and maybe it's not. So, which is funny. I just said he's the most certain with what they got out of all the quarterbacks, and we're still not certain what we have with him.
He is like its own enigma. You can create any narrative you want with Ben Roethlisberger's 2020 season. You can make excuses, you can point to the good, and you can point to plenty of the bad. And it literally is whatever you want the narrative to be. So whether you have a microphone in front of your face or whether you're tapping away on your keyboard, if you want to talk about how Ben Roethlisberger should be let go, focus on the last half of the season. 7 interceptions in the last however many games. We know the playoff performance, all that stuff. But then if you want to say, well, he still did play well, you can go back to the first half. It literally is. It's a very unique beast in Ben Roethlisberger's season last year and him moving forward. Bryan, anything to add?
No, you know what? I am in the camp that I'm ready to keep Ben Roethlisberger.
Yeah.
But if I'm looking at it with 2020 vision, and yeah, there's a pun in there too, 2020 vision, because 2020 was so blurry last year. Yeah. And we don't know what we're looking at. But there were so many tales of two halves with the Steelers that make people worry.
Steel Dog 88 gives us $5. He said, does it make it worth it if we fizzle out and have to have a repeat of last season? I think that right now, where we're sitting right now, that there's very few fans, even if Roethlisberger comes back, that views the Steelers as preseason Super Bowl contenders. Am I right? Anyone agree or anyone disagree with that? Silence says it all. Dave's going to say yes. Do you think they're Super Bowl contenders in the preseason?
It's crazy because, I don't watch all these talking head shows and things like that with the NFL, but I see clips of them on Twitter, and sometimes I'll do it. And there are people that are like, oh my goodness, what is wrong with the Steelers? Why would they bring back Ben Roethlisberger? There are other places. I'm pretty sure it was Good Morning Football. I can't remember which one of them said this puts the Steelers back in the mix with everything for next year, having Roethlisberger. That's how some of them felt. So I'm in between, if you know what I mean. But at the same time, you got to look at it. The offense was bad late, whether it be scheme, whether it be ability. The offense was bad. It's got to be different. And different doesn't have to be Ben Roethlisberger. Different can be other things. It's already different in offensive coordinator. It's going to, we're hoping that it's going to be different with some other key issues like offensive line, whether it's a new running back or a different philosophy in the running game, how they're going to do it. It needs to be different. It can't just be more of the same. And so many people think that more of the same is, Roethlisberger's more of the same. Not necessarily. You can do a lot of different things around him and still have that same quarterback. We'll see if it works.
Well, Isaac said this, and he didn't give us a super chat, but he's a longtime listener of the program. He said, a lot of people don't want Ben to walk because they're too attached to him. You got to do what's good for the Steelers. And so this is what the next question is for me. Is this good for the Steelers if Ben Roethlisberger returns? Is it actually good for the organization? Think about it from that lens. Think about it from that. Look through it with that lens. Is it good for the organization for Roethlisberger to be back? Brian, what do you think?
In my own mind, I'm actually thinking it is. I'm glad he's back for that reason because, like Dave said earlier, like you've alluded to, it when you asked that question, does it give you the best chance to win? And I really think it does. So it goes back to that. We don't believe in Mason Rudolph, and probably, and this is something that I've already put in for Fact or Fiction, this is probably meaning the end for Mason Rudolph, unless something happens that he does get playing time next year. But that means that they don't believe in number 2, and so they're sticking with their number 1, who's number 7, and that's going to be Ben Roethlisberger. And when they put together a window 2 years ago, remember we talked about that window big time when they were bringing in guys like Eric Ebron and Stefan Wisniewski and even Chris Wormley, and they were doing a lot of 2-year deals last year. When they did that, that was done to get Ben that best position for a ring. So now we've got to see what the front office is going to do. Are they going to look at free agency? Are they going to look at the draft on trying to make it a ring-worthy draft and free agent period for 2021? Because it seems like the window that they put together was a 2-year window, and it doesn't extend to 2022. So I can't wait to see the deal that they make with Ben Roethlisberger, but this is a move that keeps them as contenders, I believe, with Dave, as far as that goes. Now, I've been looking at the first power rankings. They have them 8th in the AFC. They have them 12th in the NFL, but 8th in the AFC. So it's really interesting. So, and that's the one that I read today. So, when you're looking at it, the national media is going to look at Pittsburgh as dysfunctional and bringing Ben back because as a move because he's done and they need to move on. They're going to do that. Steeler Nation, BTSC Nation, they're going to do the same thing. But when you look at it, the bottom line is what you care about the most is 2021, and a lot of you will give your right arm for a Super Bowl. Well, that's kind of what they're doing. They're not giving up on that right arm, and that's what they're doing by bringing back Ben Roethlisberger. I still think it's a little bit of a sentimental move. They're not ready to move on, but they're not ready to move on for a reason.
Okay, Dave, let's go back to the question. And that was, is this the best thing for the Steelers organization to have Ben Roethlisberger back?
I'm going to say yes, mainly from a number standpoint, because if you're going to have $22.25 million tied up in a quarterback that might not even be on the roster, you might as well tie up a little bit more and have him around. That's from the stat person within me. Then you want to look at it. Is Ben the same player he was 5 years ago? I mean, other than the guy that just won the Super Bowl, how many people at this age are the same player that they were 5 years ago? That's not what you expect. But you also got to remember that what he brings is above the neck as well. And you have to realize that works. You just can't do, like I've been saying, you just can't do the same stuff. You can't do the same thing and have the same philosophy and roll out the same people because it didn't work down the stretch. You've got to fix problems, but it's not that they're not fixable. It's not that they're not fixable. So Bryan said something that I did want to hit on real quick, and that was he said that it showed that they had no faith in Mason Rudolph, or I don't know if he said no faith. I don't know exactly how he said it, but I'm not in that camp. I don't feel that Mason Rudolph, even though I thought he was an intriguing person to draft in the third round, I was in favor of that. I've been a guy that wanted to see him succeed. Was obviously did not do as well in 2019 as we had hoped, but I still don't think that he was ever the guy that was brought in to definitely be the guy. I mean, what Green Bay did last year by trading up in the first round, that's the next guy for them. That's obvious. To me, Rudolph was what he was meant to be the guy that's there behind. And maybe he's the next guy, but doesn't have to be. And there's still a decent chance that he could be called on for part of the next season because you just don't know.
Okay, Sean the Don gives us $5. Thank you very much. He says, do you guys, and this is something I was actually going to bring up next, do you guys think this is going to hinder on Canada running his offense fully? Ben needs to adapt. I feel we can't run a watered-down Canada offense. This is something that I talked about on I'm just going to say it, Dave. I apologize. My Let's Ride podcast. That's going to run Friday morning. If you haven't checked it out, check it out. And there's a lot of complicated factors to the quarterback room this year, and one of them is Canada's offense. Is Ben coming back? If they can't run Canada's genuine offense, is it going to hinder the production of the offense in the long term? And that's a question that I can't answer because I don't know what Canada's going to do. He's proven that he can kind of alter his offense based on what he has. I could tell you what the atypical quarterback's like with him, and I would tell you it's probably like a Jacoby Brissett. It's not a Ben Roethlisberger type. But nonetheless, I feel like he can still make it work. Why wouldn't you want a future Hall of Fame quarterback at the helm? You got to make it work. Bryan, what do you think about this with the Canada offense? And we don't know what that's going to look like. Let's make that very clear. But with Ben and not knowing what's going on, like, what do you think?
I just don't think you will get 100% Canada offense. They have to tailor make it for Ben Roethlisberger to work towards his strengths. So Matt Canada is not going to be able to do everything he absolutely wants to do, but if he could make it work for Ben Roethlisberger, and like Dave said last week, that everywhere that he went, he kind of tailor-made it towards the quarterback that was there. So he's adaptable. But I don't see Ben being adaptable to anything outside of his comfort zone.
Dave, your thoughts on that Canada offense factor here?
We weren't going to see it all anyway, in my opinion. Because it's too hard. I mean, I hate to go back to it, and you guys have seen the movie Inside Out, right?
Yes.
I made a meme whenever Chip Kelly went from the Eagles to the 49ers, and I said, it was the anger one that had said, "Congratulations, San Francisco, you just ruined football. First the Eagles, now you." We're like when Chip Kelly came in, and he had a very special system, but he had to have the right people, and they had to do a major overhaul, and it still didn't work. The Steelers know better than to do that, and they said they're going to have to reevaluate how they look at some of these things, with personnel in the future. You don't make that change overnight. That's just kind of like, that's like going from a 3-4 to a 4-3 with some of the stuff that they'd be doing. And they already hinted that it was going to be a process before they even said that Ben was coming back. So maybe that was lip service. Maybe it wasn't. I still think it was you were going to see a little bit of a hybrid in there based on their personnel anyway. And they're going to have a season or two to get there. So if that was going to be that way anyway, then that's why I don't think it was that big of a deal with Roethlisberger. But that's just me. I could be completely off.
If the Steelers have a more typical offseason than they did last year, with mini camps, with OTAs, with a more traditional training camp, I think that'll also help Roethlisberger a lot. And even with the Canada system, and it's not going to be, like you said, I agree 100%. It's not going to be the full system yet. Not by any way, not in any way, shape, or form. But at the same time, I think the wrinkles that they put in, he'll be able to adapt to a lot better with more practice and more reps. All right, last question. We're going to stick with the quarterback talk here to finish out the first segment. And I want to ask you guys a simple question, and you're probably going to laugh at me, and that's okay. And I know you're probably going to say this is a very black and white, clear-cut answer. I might disagree with you, though. Is the future quarterback of the Steelers currently on the roster? Let's think after 2020 and 2021, and let's assume that Roethlisberger is done after this upcoming season. So is the future quarterback currently on the roster? Bryan, what are your thoughts? That leaves two guys.
If you're talking about a placeholder, maybe, but the future long-term starter, no.
But your next starter.
Wow, that's tough.
That changes the question. Yeah,
it does change the question. I narrowed it a little bit.
Yeah.
Quite possibly they're on the roster. I'm still leaning towards, you know what? I'm going to say the way they do things, I could see them working with one of those guys to make them the next starting quarterback and eventually having to give up and bring somebody new in. But right now, it's either, I still don't think it's going to be Mason just because of his contract running out. That seems, I couldn't see them giving him a new deal. I don't think Dwayne has been brought in for it, but I could see them saying, let's try one of these guys for a year as we figure it out. I hate that move, but that's probably what they're going to do.
What about you, Dave?
I don't think that just because Rudolph's contract runs out that they don't find some value in having him stick around as someone who would then, if this is Ben's last year, which, we'll still see, kind of depends on how he plays. We're probably thinking it most likely is, but he would be the guy that would have the most experience with the team. So he might see some value in sticking around on, very similar to what they kind of did with Landry Jones, who did stick around for a couple more seasons, at least one after his rookie deal. If you're going to say, if you're saying it's the next starter, who's the regular starter after Ben Roethlisberger, I'm going to say chances are, yes, they are on the roster right now. But if you're asking me as the starter for 2025 on this roster right now, I'm going to say no. Meaning I don't see, if they have someone other than Ben, I don't know that they're the long-term answer, kind of like what Bryan was saying.
You all can call me the eternal optimist all you want. But for me, my gosh, I can't stop thinking about Dwayne Haskins as a football player and as a future quarterback of the Steelers. When you pair him and his skill set with what Matt Canada typically likes to do, this was a first-round quarterback. Now, I know that's not a guarantee. Wrote that article last weekend. Every first-round quarterback taken from 2009 to 2016 is now on a different team or out of the league. That's another story altogether. Maybe we'll talk about that in the second segment because I thought it was very interesting. But he is a high pedigree guy. When we used to do shows with Lance, what did Lance always say? There's like 5 P's, or I don't know how many he had. Pay, pedigree, and something else. He's got the pedigree. And he didn't come from a MAC school like Miami of Ohio. Not that there's anything wrong with MAC schools. Trust me, the Steelers draft enough MAC players for everybody. But still, I mean, this is from the Ohio State, and he was a high-profile player. And you all know, because you all live in Maryland too, is there any organization in the NFL more dysfunctional from top to bottom than Washington? I am hard-pressed to take one.
Wait.
If you want to talk about on-field, you can bring up the Bengals, but I'm talking about the organization from team owner, Dan Snyder, all the way on down. They are, in my opinion, the most dysfunctional organization in the NFL.
The only thing they have going for them right now is I do like their head coach.
Well, right now, but I'm saying at the time,
at
the time when he was drafted, he couldn't have gone to a worse place than to go to Washington. And Washington threw him out there right away. I don't think the system fit. He didn't probably want to be there. Clearly, I mean, last season, he's out there at the strip clubs during the COVID era and throwing caution into the wind in that regard. He gets himself cut. The Steelers take a flyer on this guy. There's no risk with the Steelers. I just am thinking to myself, if they can get this kid's head right, and that's a big if, I think he has the skill. He has the skill set. And, I've talked about Trey Lance and the rookie that's coming out of North Dakota State and what I like about him. And, he's athletic. He can run. He is a big arm guy. Dwayne Haskins is every single one of those things and then some. But is he accurate enough? Can he read the defenses? And those are questions that only the coaches are going to be able to decipher. But guys, are you buying what I'm selling? Or are you saying, no, Jeff, you're nuts. You're just a very optimistic guy. Bryan, go ahead and tell me I'm wrong or tell me I'm right.
I'm buying everything you're selling, except for we're forgetting about one thing: work ethic. And one of the rubs on this guy is that he did not have a very good work ethic when he came into the league. I don't
know. He dropped like 16 pounds from his rookie year to his second year when they asked him to get in shape. He came into great shape last year and then for some reason fell out of favor with the organization.
I'm talking about playbook. I'm talking that he wasn't willing to study. I'm not saying that's going to happen here. The guy's got a second chance. And when we get second chances, we look at that and we're like, all right, this could be the end for me really early if I don't step it out. He is in a good environment to step it up, and probably one of the best places with a good staff, a great head coach that knows how to relate to his players and works very hard to keep them accountable, but is also accountable to them. That's what Mike Tomlin does. He's going to get every opportunity. The Pittsburgh Steelers sometimes, for me, and you can see this every single when free agents leave, you see them fall off sometimes, but it's a New York type of deal. If you can make it here, you can make it. Okay, that's not working, but it's just going to contradict what I was saying. It came to my head and I'm like, this is good, but this is the place that you can make it. You have every opportunity to make it. And so I just shot myself in the foot. So I'm gonna
Dave, go ahead. Okay. Take the baton, Dave. Take the baton.
I'll take it. Hand it off here, Bryan. I'll take it. I won't drop it yet. I'm buying what you're saying, Jeff. You are right. There's something about it that you say it's a great chance, but in no way I'm not even remotely counting on it. It is not even in my mind for 2021. Because what this is going to be is now you actually have him in an organization. If he can get there and make the squad, he's got to get that far. But if he does, you now actually have a quarterbacks coach, which they didn't have 2 years ago with the Steelers. This is much better. The biggest thing with Haskins was they said that they played him too soon and he needed to get up to speed on stuff. Look at everything that would have to happen for him to actually have to step on the field and take snaps for the Steelers next year. Right?
Yeah.
There's no need.
Well, that's why the preseason is important.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is they said that was the worst thing that happened to him was they thrust him in too soon in Washington. That will not happen again because if he's not ready, there's no reason to see what they got. They're not going to do that. He's just not going to be with the team anymore. So it's one of those things that's very intriguing, but for all we know, come the second week of September, he's not even with the organization anymore. That's why, because they took such a low flyer on him, there is massive reward, hardly any risk, but you can't even, you can't even say for sure that he's going to be with the team come week one.
I like it. We'll see. It's a low risk. It's like you said, it's low risk. Yeah. Low risk. Yeah. Hey, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, if you're on the audio side, you're going to go to part 2 because I'm going to be throwing some we're going to keep the quarterback talk going. I'm going to throw these guys some quarterback NFL draft scenarios and see what they would do if they're the Pittsburgh Steelers. Stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. All right, Pittsburgh Steelers fans, welcome back to part 2 of the Steelers preview. I'm Jeff Hartman, co-editor of BehindTheSteelCurtain.com. Joining me as always, the podcast producer, Bryan Anthony Davis, and the other co-editor, Dave Schofield. And we're going to get things started off. Isaac Aguilera gave us $10. We appreciate that. He said, every Steelers fan, myself included, wants to believe Ben is still the same guy he was 5 years ago. But the truth is he's not. And I hope I'm wrong. Look, even everyone says that if there's one guy that, is beaten back Father Time, it's old Tom Brady down in Tampa. But even Tom Brady's not the same quarterback he was 5 years ago. And he's in his 40s. Not many people even play that long into their 40s. But no, Ben is not the same quarterback he was 5 years ago. And this is why last season, when Kevin Colbert, leading up to the scouting combine, which didn't happen, he was basically saying, I think Ben could be better. And I'm like, really? I get what you're saying, that, a year off and he got some time to watch the game more than play it. Like, I understood what he was saying, but come on. He's coming off of a season-ending elbow surgery, and you think he could come back and be better? That's a little much for me. So anything about that, Bryan, you want to comment on?
You brought up old man Tom Brady. You brought up him. And, Ben actually won more games in the regular season than Tom Brady did last year. Now, not all of last year because of the all those wins in the postseason.
Oh,
but
when it matters.
Yeah, absolutely the ones that matter. But, Ben can, it's just what our expectations of Ben is going to be. And if you're looking for 16-0, which a lot of us, we got to a point where we started looking for 16-0, and we knew that wasn't going to happen, but we started to get that expectation in our heads. And then when he fell short of it, then we poked a lot of holes in it. I'm doing the same thing. I'm doing the same thing tonight. But when you look at the whole thing, and it just goes back to everything we've been talking about, he could be very good for the Steelers and be what they need.
Okay, Dave, thoughts?
Look at what they surrounded him with down there.
Oh,
in Tampa.
Loaded.
I mean, you spend a high draft pick on a tackle who ends up being phenomenal and really changing their entire offensive line. Because remember, going into the season, they're like, oh, Brady might be getting killed down there behind that line. They shored up that line. They got everybody that they could for him. They had plenty of people to throw to. They had people that could run the ball. You do also realize that they were, during the regular season, they were the 28th best rushing team in the NFL, that team down there. So you're saying he's not even the same player he was 5 years ago. I know I should get back to the original question, but it's not just all about the player. It's what they have around them. That's like, I was going back answering a question for Stat Geek, not the one that I aired today, but the one the week before, about finding a magic number of all these things that teams that make the Super Bowl, kind of do these things. It was almost all offensive numbers. But then there was one team in there that broke the mold. And the team that went to the Super Bowl, won it, and broke the mold was that Denver Broncos team with Peyton Manning. It did not make sense for them to be there, but they put so much of a team around a quarterback that was older and had the smarts and the experience to do what they need to do. Ben's not the same player, but it doesn't mean that he can't do things based on his experience that'll be very beneficial.
Okay, Gaming with Geo gives us $5. He said, I see bringing Ben back as making our team worse in 2022. We'll have less money and a new quarterback who hasn't started. That's a viable, excuse, whatever you want to call it. I think that scenario could be factual, that him coming back could hurt the team, at least in the short term. But we'll see. We'll see how it pans out. All right, you already do a little. I don't want to say role play, because I'm not going there with you guys. Trust me.
I'm the cowboy.
Oh, I knew Bryan was going to do that. I'm like, oh, Bryan's going to, bust out his D&D stuff.
Oh boy! All right, so you all are Kevin Colbert, and you have to consider Mike Tomlin's a part of this, and so is Art Rooney. But I'm going to throw out. So Thursday. Mel Kiper Jr. put out a mock draft, and whatever. I look at who he has gone to the Steelers. It was the same one that Dave had mocked on Monday in his Mock Draft Monday article, which is Landon Dickerson, the center from Alabama. And of course, the fan base lit up the comments because he's injury prone and he'd probably be there in the second round. And it definitely reeked of Kiper, as in typical Kiper fashion, not doing best player available, but looking at a specific position of need and saying, he's the top guy on my board. That's who they're taking. So don't put too much stock into that. Well, what was interesting about this mock draft is he included trades. And with these trades, the Atlanta Falcons trading with the Jets, the San Francisco 49ers trading with the Detroit Lions, and the New England Patriots trading with the Denver Broncos, all to go up into the top 10. And he had a whopping 5 quarterbacks selected in the top 10. 5. Now, I thought that was crazy. And the reason why I thought it was crazy was that Mac Jones went to the Carolina Panthers at, I think, 8 or something like that. And Mac Jones seems to be that guy that his stock is starting to really skyrocket. He played well in the Senior Bowl. He obviously won a national title. I felt like during the college football regular season, they were talking about him being a late 1 or a 2, like a second-round pick, not a top 10 pick. But let's assume that because Lawrence is going to go to Jacksonville or he's going to be number 1 overall no matter what, and let's assume Wilson's off the board either, the BYU quarterback. So that leaves Fields, Lance, and Mac Jones available. So my question is, out of these 3 quarterbacks, so let's say we'll do it one at a time. Fields, Ohio State, quarterback. He's a very mobile guy, tough as nails. We saw that in the college football playoffs. He drops to number 12. Are you making a trade up from 24 to try to get Fields? Bryan, you're Colbert. What are you doing?
No.
Okay. Any explanation?
You know what? I'm going to go with an Ohio State bias here. With Ohio State quarterbacks have not done a lot, and wondering if it's the system. And that's basically what I'm looking at here. I could be wrong.
All right, Dave, do you make the trade up to get him?
Bryan took my answer. The answer is no, and for that reason, is that name the last Ohio State quarterback that has done really well in the NFL. Can you? Joe Burrow doesn't count.
Nor has he done anything in the NFL.
True. Or at least that we think he's going to do.
Yeah, something. Right. Exactly. No, I can't think of one.
I mean, it could be different. This could be the guy that breaks the mold, because you could say it's like the Steelers went to the Super Bowl as a 6 seed. It's never happened before until it has. So for that reason, I'm definitely not moving up 12 spots to do it. I don't even know if I'd move up 4 spots to do it.
What if he plummets and he's there at 24? Bryan, you making the move? Making the pick?
I don't know. Okay. Just for the same reason. It's probably I'm passing on the guy, and that I could be completely wrong for passing on him, but I'm kind of looking at. I just don't think that I have him on my big board of guys that I want to sacrifice a number 1 pick for.
And the big board that was behind you last draft.
Oh yeah. Oh man, I spent hours on that, and then I didn't have anybody to help me with it to put the names
like, Bryan,
up.
what's going on the big board? I don't know. I'm losing my mind over here. All right, Dave, if Fields is there at 24, what are you doing?
I would consider pulling the trigger at 24 if you've done your due diligence and think that unless you have the same concerns that all the other teams did that passed up on them. So I'm not inside there, but if they feel confident in that, I don't. There are certain players I would be okay with them moving up for. Just my gut feeling, and this is, like I said, not like I dove deep into everything. This could be completely wrong. I just don't feel that this is one that it should be. Although I kind of felt the same way about Lamar Jackson when he was out there, and then look at what he's doing. So
yeah. All right. I would say that I'm not going to trade up for him, but if he's there at 24 and like you said, they do their diligence, maybe. Let's go to Trey Lance now. North Dakota State. He's at 12. Same scenario. Are you trading up to get the North Dakota State product? Young guy, inexperienced, a lot of potential. Bryan, what do you think?
I like everything this guy brings to the table. I am trading up for him if I can. It just depends what if it's a Devin Bush type price. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and make that move. Now, I don't want anybody to come at me with when was the last North Dakota State quarterback to do anything? I mean, you could count Carson Wentz in there, but I think he would fit the system and what they're trying to do. And I think he has a lot of raw talent that I like a whole lot more than that of a guy that was originally number 2. Like Fields was originally supposed to be the number 2 pick. And if he's dropping and everybody's passing on him, I'm passing on him too. I don't think people are going to be passing on Trey Lance.
All right, Dave, you trading up for my boy Trey Lance or no?
See, this you have me so screwed up because to me I said no to Fields because I haven't dove into anything with Fields. I haven't looked at him because I always thought he was going to be one of the guys that's going up there higher. You know what I'm saying? But this one I have looked at, and therefore I would be more likely to say pull the trigger on this one if you think as long as the Steelers believe he's the guy that's going to be the quarterback in 2025. You know what I mean? That's still going to be the guy to be that guy at that time. I'm okay with that. But like I said, that's only because I've looked into him more than the other ones because I thought the other ones would be off the table.
I look at Lance, and like I said, there's a multitude of reasons why I would trade up for him. I think he's the most likely to fall, although that could maybe be someone like Fields. I don't know. But he's also inexperienced enough that, and with Roethlisberger coming back, he would have a chance to learn and get in the system. And then Matt Canada could really do some crazy stuff, I think, with Trey Lance. Since you both said you would trade, well, Dave, you said you would trade up for him, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So since we both traded up, we're not going to go through the other scenario. Evgeny Crosby gives us $4.99. Says, I'm more worried about the Steelers defense than Roethlisberger coming back. Fair enough.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure what parts of the defense you're overly concerned with, but I think they're still going to be really good. Now let's do this again with Mac Jones because he's the guy. It happens every year, and there's going to be other players as well. We all know this. If you follow the NFL draft, there's players that all of a sudden you start to see their stock just slowly climb. You're like, wait, what's going on with this guy? Like, there's a second-round pick. What the heck, Mac Jones? Are you trading up for Mac Jones, Bryan?
I would like to invoke my inner Freddie Mercury from Queen's Bohemian Rhapsody when I say, no, 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 no. The guy had all the weapons in the world. He should have not been a Heisman finalist. I do not like Mac Jones. I know he had a good Senior Bowl. He is not first-round talent in my eyes. Everybody can come at me. That's fine, but he's not. Not trading up for this guy. I think he's a second at best, probably a third-round quarterback.
Dave? Mac Jones.
No. Take the words Ohio State from Justin Fields, put in the words Alabama. I'll say the same thing. It's the same. It's one of those things that when you have a very strong program all around, your quarterbacks are going to look better. Yeah. And who's the last Alabama quarterback that really did a lot in the NFL? I can't always remember because I don't watch college football, if you know what I mean.
The last Alabama quarterback?
Yeah.
AJ McCarron. No. Joe Namath, maybe?
No, I was going to say, because or is Bryan only judging hot girlfriends? Is that what it is?
Dave, this guy has been putting this in there. The Steelers, I'm sorry, wrong one. Steelers fan 1823. Let me find it. He's been saying this over and over again. Dave, to answer your question, the greatest Ohio State quarterback in the NFL was Mike Tomczak. Here it is.
I didn't even know that Tomczak went to Ohio State.
Best Ohio State quarterback ever. What was Mike? So if Mike Tomczak, I don't know. If Mike Tomczak is the greatest, then that's all you need to know in regards to Ohio State quarterbacks. Yeah. I watched this is what I like to do. I like to go onto specific YouTube channels that break down players, and they show a lot of film, and then I'll watch some game film of the player. And I've watched Mac Jones film. I've watched Trey Lance. Kyle Trask is another one from Florida that I watched. He's not considered a first-round pick, but I was curious. Mac Jones I don't think there's anything special to me at all about this guy. I mean, he's more of a traditional quarterback. I'm looking for someone with a little bit of mobility, and he doesn't have that. Some people are saying he's the next Tom Brady. I don't know about all that. We'll see, but I'm passing big time on Mac Jones. I'm even passing on him if he's there 24. Bryan, are you doing the same?
Oh, yeah. No, I don't want anything to do with him.
Okay. Dave, same?
Yeah, same.
All right. Very good.
Maybe if he's there in round 2, I'd think about it.
Okay.
And that's fine, but you just don't want to do the Artie Burns here. You just don't want to do the JP Lozman like the Bills did because they had to have a quarterback. You just don't want to pick you don't want to pick the position. And that would be picking the position if you ask me.
Yeah. Okay, let's go into some trivia now. We have some time. I want to be able to take our time with this. Dave, go ahead. Fire some trivia at us.
All right. Well, if you've been following my series on BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, your one-stop shop for all things Pittsburgh Steelers.
Great blog.
Every Thursday, I think the first week might have been on a Friday, but around Thursday, I've been looking at a draft class from the Steelers. I started with 2004, and I've been going up each week, telling you all the players that were in the draft class and how their careers panned out. Well, something was very interesting when for the one today, which was the class of 2009, and it was that the Steelers had back-to-back picks in that draft. And I know you guys both knew this because you read my article. So I couldn't ask specifically about that. But then I got to thinking, is this something that happens a lot with the Steelers? So I went all the way back year by year, myself just looking it up, all the way back to 1970, the merger. Since the merger, how many times do you think the Steelers have had back-to-back picks in the NFL draft? You know it's at least one.
I'm going to say just once.
I'm going to say, actually, I know it's been more than that. I can't tell you who. I'm going to say 3.
Okay. It's so funny because every time I hear this number, I think of the episode of Friends when she just at the end just puts up 7. It's 7 times. 7 times they've had back-to-back picks. Here's what's even crazier. There was one season they had back-to-back picks 2 times in the same draft.
Wow.
Which just so happens to be the first draft that was ever televised. Do you know what year that was?
I'm going to say 1980.
And you would be correct, Brian Anthony Davis. It was 1980. And it's what's crazy with both of these picks. They had the last pick of one round and the first pick of the next round. Of course, they had the last pick because they had won the Super Bowl in '79. But in rounds 9 and 10, they had picked 249 and 250. And then in rounds 11 and 12, they had 305 and 306. But I'm going to ask one last question about this. The highest they have ever drafted with back-to-back picks was they had back-to-back picks in the third round, picks number 73 and 74. Any idea what year or who maybe one of the players would have been there if you can remember your draft? Because this one is, I'll just say this. It's since the 80s.
Well, are we talking about 2009? With Mike Wallace and Craig Urbick?
No, that wasn't who was back to back in 2009. They had back to back
Joe Burnett
picks in round 5 is when they had their back to back picks.
Okay.
What if I gave you a hint that one of the players even became a coach for the Steelers?
And you said since when?
It's been since the 80s.
Since the 80s.
Yeah. Carnell Lake. Darren Perry.
Actually, that's a pretty good answer. That's a really good answer. 89.
It would actually be 1999 in round 3, pick 73, 74. Pick 74 was pick 73 was Joey Porter. And then
Amos Saraway.
No, it was like Chris Ferris, I think it was a tackle.
He from Wisconsin.
Yes, they were back-to-back picks, highest back-to-back picks they've ever had. Pick 73 and 74 in 1999.
Yep, 1 out of 2.
Yeah. So, but yeah, just so you know, the years were 2009, 2001, 99, 85, twice in 1980, and they had back-to-back picks in that historic 1974 draft in the 6th round. So after they picked Mike Webster, they had back-to-back picks in the 6th round.
And we don't know their names because
we don't. I didn't even care enough to write them down.
All right, is that it, Dave?
Yeah.
All right, Brian, you said you had trivia, right?
Yes. Okay. So, I love middle names. And you know that because look at my screen here. And we talk about one of the major parts of the show tonight was talking about one Benjamin Todd Roethlisberger. So I was looking at other Steeler picks in the modern era of the Pittsburgh Steelers, which I go from 1969 all the way up. So that's how I do the modern era of the Steelers. And I have some very, very interesting middle names here. And I'm going to go ahead and give you the middle names. And you tell me which quarterback, and they were starting quarterbacks. You tell me which quarterback had this particular middle name. I'm only going to give you 4, so we won't go forever on this.
Okay.
Kennedy. Who had a presidential middle name? Kennedy.
Bubby Brister.
Actually, it's not. He actually does have a presidential middle name, but no, it's not Bubby Brister.
Let's go Neil O'Donnell.
That's what I was going to say next.
It is Neil O'Donnell. Neil Kennedy O'Donnell.
That a-hole.
So let's talk Bubby Brister.
I was going to say, you might
All
actually
right.
ask some of these
So,
that I might know because I've
first
looked
of
some
all-
of these up before.
You know Bubby Brister's first name.
No.
It's not Bubby, Jeff. I
Oh,
know.
clearly it's not Bubby.
Oh, come on, man.
It's Walter.
Okay.
What was Walter Brister's middle name?
Eisenhower.
It is Walter Andrew
Carter.
Brister.
Oh, Andrew.
He has the most,
yeah.
probably the most common middle name of anybody with Andrew. And with a name like Walter and Bubby, you wouldn't think that.
Could have swore it was Eisenhower, but go ahead.
Whose middle name was Paxton?
I know that one. Jeff, you
Yeah.
can guess, but I know that one.
Is it, so I don't know, Mason Rudolph.
No, it's TB12.
Terry
Bradshaw.
Paxton Bradshaw.
Paxton.
And here's my favorite.
And honestly, the only reason I knew that is because I just saw it somewhere whenever the Steelers had Paxton Lynch.
Eisenhower is funny.
I just
I
saw
do
it as a
love
random
Eisenhower.
thing.
I'm here for comedic relief, not for my intelligence. We'll put it that way.
The final one. It's a blockbuster, my friends. Alfred. Whose middle name is Alfred?
Alfred. Let's see. Let's go through it. Terry Bradshaw, we already had. It's not Mark Malone because I think he was an M. Because I think he was
Mike
all-
Tom-
He's just
Back.
M, yes.
No, Tommy
no-
Maddox.
Tommy
Thomas
Alfred Maddox.
Yes! Nice! Nice! Nice!
So from this point forward, he is no longer number 8 Tommy Gunn. He is Tommy Alfred Maddox when we speak of
Well,
him.
no, you have to call him Thomas. Thomas Alfred.
Thomas
There you go.
Alfred.
Let's make it sound prim and proper.
Was he a Thomas or was he just a Tommy?
I don't know. How long? I don't know. I didn't even know Bubby's real name.
Oh, you
All
should-
right.
I'm disappointed.
Well, I'm not. So okay, let's let's do some final thoughts here. Brian, go ahead. You have the floor.
You know what? Ben Roethlisberger is back with the Pittsburgh Steelers next year, presumably. We know that. Does it give them the best chance to win? We talked about that earlier. Yeah. Look at getting him weapons. Look at moving some stuff around. Look under the couch cushions. Don't be all negative about this period. This is going to be a wild, woolly, really fun period. And we've got a lot to look forward to. There's not a lot of what ifs. If this guy can take the baton, you know you have a guy that's been there. He's bought the t-shirt and he could win another t-shirt. And you quite possibly could be buying the t-shirt as well that says Super Bowl 56 champions.
All right, Dave. Final thoughts.
When it comes to the Steelers, saying that they're moving towards a return for Benjamin Todd Roethlisberger, it tells me that we as fans look back and see how things are, and we try to interpret what we see only knowing maybe 60% of what's actually happening. Perfect example of you can look at statistics and things going on. Like you can say, oh, well, that was a bad throw by the quarterback. What did the quarterback overthrow the receiver? Did the receiver run the wrong route? One of them made a bad read. Who was it? We don't always have that because we don't have the call in the huddle, and the Steelers do. With the fact that the Steelers so quickly moved on from Randy Fichtner, but yet they're saying they want to bring back Ben Roethlisberger, that might not pass our eye test. But still remember, we don't have all the information of what was going on. Maybe there was more than meets the eye. Maybe there wasn't. But if the Steelers are making this decision, I'm going to say they have more of the information than I do. So therefore, they do not feel that the problems down the stretch had to do with Roethlisberger as much, or else I think they would have maybe said it is time to go on. So remember, we are fans. We don't have the calls in the huddle. We're not in the team meetings. We don't know if there's, conflict or if everything sunshines and rainbows. We just don't always know. We try to do our best to figure things out from what we can see. But when it really comes down to it, the people that have all the information are the ones that are making the decisions.
Very well said. My final thoughts are really just a request, and this is selfish kind of, but it's also for the brand. And if you listen to my Let's Ride podcast, so I'm going to do something Saturday that I haven't done yet. SB Nation is partnering with the app called Locker Room. This is only for iOS people. That drove me nuts. I didn't know that off the bat, but it's not for Android yet. If you have an iPhone, if you go get the free app Locker Room, and then find me on there at @JHartman_PIT. It's the same as my Twitter handle. Follow me on Saturday. I'm going to test run this thing, and I'm going to do a locker room where you can actually join me and talk with me. So it's like a call-in show. So all these people on YouTube or even on Facebook that see it and like, oh, I'd love to actually have a question where I could talk with him or them. This is your opportunity. So I'm going to put an article out on the website. It's probably going to be Saturday around 7 p.m. Eastern time in the United States, because I know we have a global audience. If you're interested, all you have to do is find the app, see the article. I'll tweet it out as well. Join me. I'd love to see some of the YouTubers out there. That would be awesome to be able to talk with you all for the first time. It would be really cool. So check that out. That's it. Just going to throw that out there. Sorry, Shield, no Android. Not yet anyways. So I was bummed about that as well. So check that out. Locker Room app, free app, download it, follow me, and you'll see me on Saturday. Otherwise, guys, great show. Dave, send us out as you always do.
Hey.
Best way to go. All right, we'll see y'all next week for another Steelers preview. Take it easy.